if you ever catch a cat, now, I don't mean if you catch a cat because you were chasing a cat down and you caught him. And I don't mean if you were sitting on your sofa and a cat came and jumped in your lap purring because it wanted to be petted. I mean if you ever catch a cat because he fell out of a tree. Whatever you do, under no circumstances should you ever even think about trying to throw it. That's an important lesson that you should learn, and it's a spiritual lesson too. We'll get to that. I don't come from this wisdom just by accident. I come through this wisdom because when I was younger, much younger than today, we had a dog, and our neighbor had a cat. And our dog did not particularly like that cat, and one day the cat was walking through our yard. And here the dog saw it, and here he goes, right after it. The cat saw the dog, saw the tree, ran up the tree just as far as it could go with the dog jumping at the bottom, barking just as loud as he could. That, of course, attracted Dad's attention. Dad went out. Dad saw the dog, looked up the tree to see what the dog was barking at. There was the cat at the top of the tree. So Dad went and got the dog, and he put the dog up. Waited for the neighbor's cat to come down. It didn't come down. And it didn't come down. And then we figured he'd come down in the night when nobody was looking. But we got up the next day and the cat was still up there. So Dad said he's got to do something to get the neighbor's cat out of the tree. And so we went out and I climbed the tree. Hard to believe, I know. But there was a time when trees would hold me up. Well, it just so happened that my cousin Jack, now Jack was not my cousin like he was also a teenager. Jack was a 50-year-old grown man, so he didn't climb the tree after me, but he happened to be visiting from Michigan. Hi, Michigan folks. And he didn't want to climb the tree, but when I got to the top of the tree and I pulled the cat out, I couldn't climb down. And there I sat at the top of the tree holding the cat, wondering what to do with the cat. And there was Jack at the bottom of the tree offering advice, telling me where limbs were. And finally, Jack looks up at me and he says, "Just drop it." Now, this was not a good idea, those of you who know cats, because when they're frightened, there is not an end of a cat that is safe to catch. They're all points everywhere. "Just drop it." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, go ahead, I got it." And so it did. And there went Jack, and he reaches his hands up, and he caught it one-handed. It was beautiful. Heisman move. And he caught it right in the middle as the cat's falling. And he catches it in the middle, and all four legs around that arm that caught him. And this is where I learned the lesson. That if you catch a cat, whatever you do, don't throw it. Because as soon as Jack felt those claws going into his arm, he reacted. And the cat went nowhere. Jack let go, the cat didn't. Cat moved about 3 inches away from Jack's hands. The only way we know it moved about 3 inches is because that's how long the claw marks got. "Get this cat off of me!" And the marks got deeper and deeper and longer and longer. And finally, the cat had had enough, and Jack had had enough, and he was tired, and he stopped, and the cat let go. Seems a lot of my stories have something to do with emergency room visits, doesn't it, Clancy? If Jack had just, well, if he was going to catch the cat, if he had just waited and rather than making matters worse, had taken the claws out of his arm gently, set the cat down rather than reacting in panic, we probably wouldn't have had an emergency room visit that day. But human beings are like that. When we find ourselves in a difficult situation, sometimes we try to throw it. We respond in strange and nonsensical ways. The children of Israel found themselves doing that in Isaiah chapter 30. Now in Isaiah 30, the Israelites had sinned. We'll say they caught a cat, okay? The Israelites had sinned against God, and the consequences of that were beginning to dig in, because the Babylonians were coming from the east, and they were going to invade Israel all the way to Jerusalem and lay siege to the city. And the Israelites could see this, so they called for help. But they did not cry to God. They cried to Egypt and sent emissaries out down to Egypt and sought military aid. And this is what God has to say to them. O rebellious children, says the Lord, who carry out a plan but not mine, who make an alliance but against my will, adding sin to sin, who set out to go down to Egypt without asking for my counsel, to take refuge in the protection of Pharaoh, and to seek shelter in the shadow of Egypt. He said they were adding sin to sin. And so often we find ourselves in the same sort of predicament. We have done something wrong. We all know that sometimes we have done wrong things. And rather than crying out to God for forgiveness, we try to fix our problems ourselves. And just like when Jack tried to throw the cat, we make matters worse. So if you catch a cat, ask for help. If you commit a sin, ask for forgiveness. Don't wait until you are perfect and have yourself all fixed before you go to God. God's not necessarily interested in perfect people. He's interested in people who are willing to go to Him for help. Dwayne's going to tell us in just a second about one of those people, a guy named Peter, who didn't have quite as long and difficult a journey back to Jesus as the Israelites did. God bless you this week, and thank you if you have been for listening.